Welcome back after the break, and let's continue looking at the questions of question number 4 in the question paper in your booklet. So we're busy discussing question 4.3.5. Most of the municipalities in South Africa have had not much success in stopping the development of informal settlements. Advise the municipalities on how this problems can be solved sustainably. Now, if we look at it, we looked at the reasons why, what happens with these informal settlements. They build poor infrastructure, the crime rate might increase, we've mentioned social problems, overcrowding, and there's poor service delivery because of the high concentration of people. Now, this question over here is your typical paragraph question. Now, please keep in mind, I'm going to write it in point and bullet formation. When you do answer this question, please write it in paragraph formation or else you're going to get penalized. Now, what can we do? How can we advise the municipalities on how this problem can be solved to keep the people happy as well? And my first idea will definitely be improve service delivery in rural areas. Now, we looked at the previous questions and we said the reason why informal settlements are growing and popping up is because of the rural-urban migration, because people are not happy with the services that they receive in the rural areas. And how we can, and eventually with all these people coming over, it puts strain on the local municipality delivering services because there's many more people. In this case, that's probably the most important one. Improve the service delivery in rural areas, because if you improve it, it means that people don't want to move away from the rural areas and they will stay put. Another thing that the municipality can do, they can improve, they provide more job opportunities. Now, once again, we can move back and we can discuss the push and pull factors. What pushes the people away from rural areas? Unemployment, maybe because of a drought, maybe because of floods that are being experienced. Now, what happens in rural areas? Mostly primary activities. Many of the farms are being mechanized and lots of people might lose their jobs, so they become unemployed. Lack of services, like for instance, clean drinking water, healthcare facilities, and even schools. So provide more job opportunities in the rural settlements, and that will stop the rural-urban migration. Another point that we can use over there, to have stricter laws regarding occupation of vacant land. Because it seems with the informal settlements, no one is stopping them from building these weak infrastructure on the land that's vacant. So stricter laws can definitely be implemented. Another one that we can have a look at is build low-cost housing to accommodate the people. Now, with this low-cost housing, we can create job opportunities as well. Use the people. Basically, a new skill are being developed by building houses, and it can be moving from an informal settlement to a formal settlement and provide proper housing. Another point that we can mention over here, subsidize the people. By building houses, meaning let the people pay less to build a proper low-cost housing house. And our last reason that we can add over here, what we can do is once again, improve services such as healthcare and education. Because if you look at it, you don't find many tertiary education systems in rural settlements. Now let's quickly have a look at our next question. Read the article on social justice issues in figure 4.4, telling the story about South Africa's rural poor. Okay. Until 2001, they survived relatively well on the farm. So as you can see, the rural area, mostly farming. They had tap water. They had a tap for water. Now that's what I mean when I talk about service delivery. If you look at the situation over there, they had a tap for water. If you look at urban areas, people have loads of taps. Never mind, they even got hot water. Now these people need to travel quite a distance from where they live just to go and find clean drinking water. And in this case, it's a tap of water. And if you look at it, it's very primitive firewood being used. Because there's no such thing as decent electricity, they don't even have a geyser to warm up their food or bath water. And then until 2001, and then what happened? The farm was sold to a new owner who wanted the Skusanas off the land. For 2 years, they fought eviction. After all, this was in New South Africa, and for the first time, they had rights. But the farm owner shut down their water tap and ordered them to stop gathering wood on his land. Now, this is intense rural area. I mean, these people still rely on primitive ways, except for the water. I mean, the water comes from a single tap. They collect firewood to warm up and cook food. Whereas if you look at urban areas, we have these services. We've got electricity on a daily basis, and we have warm water and drinking water on a daily basis. Finally, the owner came early one morning when the children were still asleep, broke down the door, and threw the family's furniture and belongings onto the road. The children were afraid. They would have nowhere to sleep. Mrs. Skosana was ill and could not work anymore. So immediately what happened over here, there's another element. Unemployment. Mrs. Skosana says she will never forget the experience of being thrown out like rubbish. Now that's some of the concerns that we experience in the rural area. And let's go and look at the questions. Now explain what is meant by the term social justice. Social justice is to be treated according to law and treated fairly. Okay, so that's social justice, the way things are being handled. Name the social justice issue in the story that's been captured over there. And first of all, it's being denied access to their home. If we look at the next question, it's only for 1 mark. Why is the word new emphasized in the article? Because it shows that even though we live in a democratic country, things still haven't changed. So they've mentioned new after apartheid. It even shows that even after apartheid, things didn't really change. Did not really change. So it's a concern because, I mean, one of the rules is you have the right to have a protection and clean drinking water. Now, if you quickly look at question 4.4.4, name the law that secures the right of people who live under insecure conditions on land by others. And that law is the Land Tenure Reform. If you look at question 4.5, excluding the social justice issue mentioned in question 4.4.2, discuss two other social justice issues experienced in rural areas. Now, this is what we touched sides on when we discussed it earlier. It lacks basic needs and services. For instance, the first one, and I mean, they still collect water from one single tap, and that's no piped water line. The next one, they collected firewood. Why do they collect firewood? To stay warm or to cook their food, because there's no electricity. Okay, that's two other socials, but there's quite a few more. There's no access to services such as clinics and schools and proper infrastructure. I mean, the law says that every single child has got a right to education, but if you look at that, the kids are so scared because they thought they're going to be evicted. Do you think these kids ever went to school? And that's a concern in our rural areas. Many of them don't attend school. They just presume they're going to work on the farmlands. And the last point that we can mention over here, there are no job opportunities. Like, for instance, he lost his job. It's not like he can go and look for a new job. And most of them are underpaid. They're getting less wages than that they are supposed to get. Okay, so that's quite a few factors. There's also, if you look at the social justice system in South Africa, that doesn't actually help the people in the rural areas. Now, if we quickly look at 4.4.6, discuss any two problems that the government experience with land reform. Now, unfortunately, it's a difficult process. We can't just give the land back to other people or just claim land. People can claim the land that they used to live on. So it's a lengthy process, and there's quite a few problems that the government experience with the land reform. And first of all, it takes time and money to dispute these issues. Another massive problem is political interference, and it makes it more costly because some political parties think it's wrong, some others got a different opinion, so it's not really moving forward an advantage for the people, and once again it adds up to time. Another reason that you can mention over here, lack of evidence, lack of support from the government. For instance, this family over here, who's going to help them with the issue? And what we can mention over here as well, there's still evictions taking place. regarding the law. So people still continue to evict people, even though it's against the law. And last but not least, people have no interest in farming activities. So even though they get the land reform, they don't want to go and live there. They're not interested to go and live on the arable land or on the farmland because they've got no interest for farming. Okay, so there's quite a few points that you can make regarding the case study. After the break, we're going to continue with question 4.5. Please stay tuned. See you in a bit.